Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall.
What's up, everybody?
And we're also joined by a very special guest, Chip Brierre, the host of the Washington Football Team podcast, The Beat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chip.
How we doing, Kyle? Mike, good to see you all as well. Sporting the burgundy and gold in the background. Got a nice setup over there. I'm pretty impressed. Sorry, my digs aren't as impressive in my Jeep.
And no worries at all. Now,
it's all good. It's all good.
Chip, I have to ask you, in your bio, there's something that stands out below the host of the Washington Football Team podcast, and that is the greatest hole-in-one story ever told. I'm wondering if we're both golfers. I'm wondering if you could just enlighten us with that a little bit.
I don't know if it's the greatest hole-in-one story ever told, but it's the most improbable hole-in-one story you've ever heard. So, Country Club of Virginia in Richmond, I was about to go into high school. I was playing with what would be my student mentor to get me ready for boarding school over in Orange. We're playing this course. We get to a par 3 on the back 9. And it's a bit of a downhill slope onto the green, just slightly. I'm terrible at golf, so I hit a low liner right down the fairway thinking, oh, man, this isn't going to make it. It starts to roll. It crests over the hill and then disappears. You know, I don't see it. I just see the flagstick. So we drive up to the green, get there. We start looking for the ball, and it occurs to me there's no way it's in the hole. So we both walk up. We meet at the hole. We look down, and there it is. And this is a family podcast, so I can't say what the other guy said who'd been playing golf his entire life, but it was something in the line of bleep you. And that's how I got my hole-in-one.
Hey, that would be my reaction too, based
off
of that hit. But that's awesome to say, Chip. My uncle actually just got a hole-in-one the other day. That being said, it's been a rough couple days here for the Washington Football Team faithful. And so I have to ask you, the Washington Football Team, they lost 30-15 over the weekend to the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Let me get your initial reaction from that game.
The Arizona Cardinals are a really good football team. A lot of people had them as a potential favorite to contend for the NFC West. So it comes as no surprise that Washington was going to have some trouble taking down the Cardinals, especially after they've beaten the 49ers. My biggest pro takeaway is the team fights. That's what you want to see in a young rebuilding team. The biggest negatives, 2 of them. Dwayne Haskins' QBR is the lowest in the NFL right now. He's learning. He's got to grow, but that's not a good sign of his progress. It'll take time. Be patient. Secondly, need to get Terry McLaurin involved early. He was got most of his action in the second half, and he was great. We know Terry is good. He just needs to get more action early to get in rhythm faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then let me ask you, what can Scott Turner do to kind of get Dwayne Haskins in a rhythm early on?
Well, you saw in the second half, they were starting to run a little bit of up-tempo offense, and they were getting the ball out of Dwayne Haskins' hands quicker, and he was completing more of his passes. He was giving McLaurin a chance to make some moves in open space. That's how he was able to get a couple of good gains and that one touchdown reception he had in the game. So a little bit more of that balanced with a strong running attack and keeping the up-tempo, I think will help Haskins in the long run. Right. Think of it this way. With young quarterbacks in the league, last year even, with Kyler Murray, they dumb down the offense to try and keep it so that the ball does not sit in the pocket for too long. When you look at the defensive line that the Washington Football Team has had to go up against, even though the Eagles were depleted, they still had some guys who could get after it. Yep. The Cardinals, underrated with Chandler Jones, could get after it. Now you've got Myles Garrett and an injured offensive line. They can get after it. So get the ball out of Haskins' hands, even if you're checking it off to Antonio Gibson, Peyton Barber, J.D. McKissick. Get it out of his hands. Let the playmakers have a chance to do something, and maybe they could have a good offensive showing. I think the potential is there. It's just a matter of execution.
Right. And throughout the game, you saw Antonio Gibson kind of get into a rhythm here and there. He kind of had a couple flashes that everyone wanted to see. You saw J.D. McKissick kind of get involved in the game a lot. Do you think that's something that Scott Turner's going to hopefully have going forward? Because all we heard out of training camp was that there's going to be a lot of running backs in the passing game and a lot of kind of mismatches on the outside. So do you think he's going to try to incorporate that this upcoming week?
Well, yeah, I think that he's going to start noticing that these guys have the potential to go out there and make a difference in the passing game. Look, Antonio Gibson was drafted as a wide receiver coming into the league, and Scott Turner just noticed his ability to be able to play everywhere on the field. Maybe we get a couple more spread formations. There's been some motioning, but it's all been in these pistol packages.
Right.
Maybe, and this is just me speculating from whatever I've been able to see during the training camps that I was at, which is a couple of practices. Otherwise, I've been listening in to the press conferences and talking with my media friends over there, JP and Pete, Michael
Right.
Phillips, all those guys. And I think that there's more to the playbook, but as I said before, they're trying to keep it simple so that these young guys can get acclimated to it. So as the season goes on, as they get more comfortable, we could see that playbook get unlocked a little bit more. But that offensive line does not really open things up. Now that Brandon Sheriff's on the IR, out at least 3 weeks, the only two proven starters you have are Chase Roulier and Morgan Moses. And then you're asking these three other offensive linemen who are young and figuring things out to try and do these complicated plays. If they are, in fact, going to do that against the Browns this week, it could be a recipe for disaster. And I think Scott Turner is making the right decisions on just trying to simplify it a little bit. And then maybe if they've lulled the defense to sleep, then he breaks out a home run play.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go on to this. That being said, you had just alluded to the offense and the struggles in the offensive line. Do you think that that is going to continue to happen as we go down the road, as they start to open up the playbook more and more? Or do you see the offense having a turnaround now in more games that are not down by 3 scores early on?
You would think the offense would improve if they're down by as many points.
Right.
And it has. It's been an upward trajectory from the start to the finish, but you always want to start fast. You're fans. You've been doing podcasts. You probably spent countless hours talking about the struggles of the offensive line.
Right.
I know it's a beat. We're a broken record at this point. The only encouraging words I can have is that these guys understand the difficulties that they are facing and the struggles they are going through. So I believe that they are going to do their best to fix this and go out there and put up a better performance. And I said this on Twitter this week. If I'm Dwayne Haskins, I try and get with the offensive line specifically this week and really try to rally them that, look, we lost our guy. He was our leader in the trenches. Morgan is another guy. Lean on him. Let's work together. Let's figure this out. He's already proven he can be a leader. That's another chance for him to let his offensive line know. It's going to be hard, but that's what this season is. This is a growing season. We got to go out there, and sometimes failure is the best teacher to get better.
Absolutely. And over the course of the NFL, the weekend, we saw a plethora of injuries happen to a lot of big-name players, and the Washington football team was not foreign to that. They lost Brandon Sheriff for looks like at least a month. Wes Schweitzer stepped in relief of Sheriff, and from what I saw in the game against the Cardinals, he actually did pretty well. So, Bram, do you think that Wes Schweitzer can carry the load for Brandon Sheriff in that month while he's gone?
I think he can. I think these guys are all proven. You make it to the NFL for a reason. You can go out there and you can play. And he did play well. I saw a lot of things that were good. I also saw him try and figure out some chemistry and some protection issues. But you fix that now that you've got tape to look at. And that's what coaches always preach. You've got tape to look at. Go review it, fix the issues, try and get better next game. It's going to be another tough matchup against the Browns defensive line. It's an underrated front. So trial by fire. You got to go out there and you got to learn and just trust the process, trust your players, go out there and do the best that you can.
Now, you as a fan, Chip, I have to ask you, what is your panic meter? I'm going to ask you for two players here, Chip. Let me get your panic meter 1 out of 10 for Logan Thomas and Troy Apke.
Okay, before I answer that question, I am a fan by proximity. I actually grew up a Dolphins fan.
Oh, I feel
so
bad.
I have my Tua Tagovailoa jersey. It's already in the closet.
Okay.
Yeah, the last decade's been rough. I won't lie to you.
Hey, it's been rough for us too, Chip. It's been rough. It's
not
been
bad,
rough for us.
not good. It's been mediocre.
I can't pile on you.
My panic meter for Logan Thomas. Yeah, we're all in this together, man.
Yeah.
I put it at a 5. I'm not overly worried about Logan Thomas because he's figuring out this offense. This is his first real playing time that he's getting. So I'm going to bet a 5. And then Troy Apke, I'm surprisingly neutral today. I'll go with 6. He's shown flashes, and we've seen him as the backup. He's got options, and he can go out there and do well. But he got blown by a couple times, which is always concerning. And I think he knows that too. I'm not saying anything that's going to shock him. I think he knows that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that being said, let's move on to this upcoming game against the Browns. The Washington football team the past 2 weeks have faced some high-powered offenses with the Eagles and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, they're facing against the Browns, who last week, Nick Chubb with 124 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Do you think the Washington football team has enough on defense to be able to get this done?
Well, in the last 2 weeks, they've given up over 120 yards rushing in combined efforts. So I think Nick Chubb is still going to have a good performance. The one thing that Washington has in its favor is that they have an incredible pass rush led by Chase Young and Ryan Kerrigan. I mean, Chase Young is a top 5 player in the NFL statistically right now defensively. He's got 8 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. He's been as advertised when he came out of Ohio State, a local guy from DeMatha. So Baker Mayfield, his biggest issue with the Browns is that when he's in the pocket, he tends to struggle. When he gets outside the pocket, he throws much better. Case in point, the throw to Odell Beckham Jr. for the first score against Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football. It was beautiful. So while Nick Chubb is going to have his numbers, you got to put the pressure on Baker Mayfield. Baker is a talented quarterback, but when he's under pressure, he makes bad throws. He overthrows his guys. And when you got a monster like Chase Young coming off the edge, the yips might come out. It's going to be interesting to watch. That's actually my most highlighted matchup is how they can pressure Baker Mayfield into making bad decisions, because he's a good football player and can make some great throws. But under pressure like that, he tends to scramble and try and wheel and deal like Brett Favre.
Right. Now you just mentioned Odell and this kind of, I would call it a potentially lethal passing game with Jarvis Landry. You can add Kareem Hunt in there. You got Austin Hooper, who they signed in free agency. With Kendall Fuller hopefully being back healthy on the field this week, kind of hopefully taking a little bit of pressure off of Apke and his kind of mistakes in the past couple of weeks. So with the addition of Kendall Fuller, hopefully, do you think they will be able to limit or contain this passing offense?
It's a tall task, isn't it? When DeAndre Hopkins put up 85 and a touchdown, 85 receiving yards and a touchdown, and he made it look easy in 2 straight weeks. So it's not encouraging to have to face 2 of the best receivers in the NFL in back-to-back weeks, plus Jarvis Landry. As I know, as a Dolphins fan, he was the best receiver for that team, and now he's the number 2. Hooper's a great tight end. We saw Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert rip up the Washington football team in that first half of week 1. So there's concern, but I trust Jack Del Rio's blitz packages are what's going to break it up. Pass rushing is so underrated with slowing down and disrupting a passing game. And a lot of people like to talk about it, but they never really see the nuances of how that happens. So Odell Beckham Jr. was able to get open and those guys because Baker Mayfield did not get a lot of pressure on him. If you pressure the quarterback, then it makes things easier for those DBs. Jimmy Moreland, Fabian Moreau, both of those picks came when Carson Wentz was under pressure. So I don't know if it's the DBs. It's just getting to the quarterback. They have to get to the quarterback. That's how those guys have good games.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you there, Chip. Now, let me get what's your final score prediction for Sunday's game?
It's a tough one.
I know it's early in the week because of injuries. I know.
Yeah. It's, man, I hate doing predictions. I do, no matter what. It's okay. I know they're coming, so I try and think about it. I think it's a close one. And I'm gonna go 17-14. Okay. Washington. I think Washington turns it around. It's a hard ass to go into Cleveland. They got a lot of momentum. The Browns do after that win in the Battle of Ohio. But I think there's enough of a chip on the shoulder of this team after the performance they put out, Ron Rivera challenging them to keep fighting, that they'll be able to pull something together. And Baker's going to have a rough time. He could get a couple touchdowns. He'll get some great throws. But Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, Jonathan Allen, Matt Ioannidis, Deron Payne, I could do this all day. They are going to have
You
something
keep
to
going.
say with the final score, as they have all 3 weeks. Yeah, no, just keep going. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
well, Chip, I really do appreciate you coming on. You were a fantastic interview, and you gave us a lot of insight into the game from last weekend and the upcoming one this weekend. If you haven't already, everybody, make sure you go check out The Beat, the Washington Football Team podcast hosted by Chip. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you having on or being on, man.
No problem, guys. Keep them straight on the fairways. We'll try and get you home one soon.
Absolutely. Make sure you get another one, okay? And this time, make sure it goes in the air first.
Right. Get a little air under it. Yeah,
it's got to look good this time. Yeah, like I meant to do it.
Right.
You got to get some style points this time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Chip. You have a good night, sir.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Right. Well, that was a great interview with Chip, the host of the Washington Football Team podcast. It was fantastic to be able to chalk up with him and be able to get his thought process on the football team because, look, we have a lot to go over and talk about with this team. I have a lot of questions myself. There's issues all across the board. But that being said, I am looking forward to this weekend, but we're going to talk about that game on Thursday. All right, everybody, now that we have interviewed Chip Brierre, the host of the Watch Football Talk podcast, let's start talking about the NFL overall over the weekend, our kind of reactions. Hall, let's start talking about this immediately. What was the biggest game, the biggest surprise to you over the weekend?
You know what? I'll actually go as recently as last night. The Las Vegas Raiders, the newly Las Vegas Raiders in their home opener, came out against what supposedly everyone said was going to be it's still early, it's week 2, but the way that Drew Brees has looked these first 2 weeks, I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain it or even get it going throughout the whole rest of these 14 weeks.
That's a great point, dude.
My biggest surprise was the loss.
Sorry, that's a great point that you had just brought up. We have talked about all offseason, and even last year you and I were talking about how Drew Brees is, I know it wasn't just his arm strength, but him altogether. Michael Thomas was kind of burying those weaknesses of Drew Brees, making him look really good.
Exactly.
We're starting to see the other side of it.
Exactly. I mean, I know he was kind of considering going to the booth this year, and it looks like he may have chose wrong. But I know it's still early and things can turn around. But again, yeah, my biggest surprise is Las Vegas. Obviously, I mean, Darren Waller is excelling and then rising on the tight end ranks early in the league, just based off last year as well.
He is a baller.
Derek Carr, I think, yeah, he's a baller. I didn't know he was that fast, which is like crazy. But a great story too. He was like a drug addict, out the league for a while. Was like bagging groceries, came back. But Derek Carr hit I think 11 different receivers last night. He got everyone involved in the passing game. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is just a beast. You can ask Malcolm Jenkins that because he was on the bottom of a pile a couple times due to Josh Jacobs. So, my biggest surprise from week 2 was definitely Las Vegas, the newly Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, and the funniest thing, what is with the whole flame over Vegas thing? And I thought the funniest thing about it was like they lit the flame, and it like you could tell it's like a screen. Like it's like an LED screen or whatever have you. It's some sort of screen, and like they put some woman in a chair and put a fake button on her and act like she's the one that turned on the. Come on, dude. We're not 5 years old. Come on.
I didn't even see it. Yeah, I didn't see it live. I seen y'all talking in the chat about it. I was like, "What's going on? I'm driving home." No. So I saw the highlights and I was just like, "Wow, this is weird."
That being said, the Raiders did stun the NFL last night. They looked really, really good. They were able to get the ball downfield. My guy Bryan Edwards looked really good going and attacking the football, but their running game is just stifling. They are really, really good. Now that being said, the Chargers, I think, really surprised people over the weekend. They went tooth and nail with the Kansas City Chiefs, forced them into overtime with Justin Herbert as their quarterback after Tyrod Taylor in pregame warmups had to bail out of the game because of chest pains, which I hope he feels better. But I thought that was a big indicator there. I was like, whoa, the Chargers are moving the football? Herbert's throwing for 300?
Yeah, it's weird because I wouldn't say his Pat Mahomes his worst games because he doesn't have worst games. His 2 worst games of his standards have come against those cover 3 type of defenses where it's the Seattle kind of cover 3 type of thing with like obviously what's it called over in who's their D coordinator again? He's with Seattle. Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley. Yeah, so he struggles against them, and his two, by his standards, worst games have actually been against the Chargers in his career. But no, yeah, definitely. I mean, I was really high on Herbert coming out. I knew people said that it was going to be a kind of a struggle and like a growing process because he wasn't under shotgun. He came from that kind of spread offense at Oregon. He wasn't putting up those godly crazy numbers. He wasn't a big playmaker like that. But that was because he didn't have a lot of playmakers around him. And people don't really know that Crystal Ball's offense at Oregon is kind of a spread out, but it's still pro style schemes and concepts. So he was running pro style stuff for the most part, just not like that NFL style level stuff. But as you can see in the Senior Bowl and towards the end of the season, they let him run a little bit more. He's definitely a big mobile guy. You saw the linebacker try to hit him on the sideline and knock himself out. He's a big, stout guy. Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I'm surprised. I'm happy for Justin Herbert, and I'm definitely was a big surprise with the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. Now, fantasy guys, over the weekend we saw, like I alluded to earlier with Chip, I cannot believe how many injuries happened over the weekend. Torn ACLs left and right. I think there were 13 torn ACLs over the weekend thus far. Absolutely insane. So we're going to talk about a little bit later, but I just want to let you guys know, we're going to give you guys some fantasy football advice. Some guys you could target in free agency on the waiver wire that could possibly produce for you while you're being without these guys. And I just want to let you guys know before we keep going on about the NFL, we're going to be getting into that later on. Now, that being said, the Atlanta Falcons go up huge on the Dallas Cowboys. And then, just like the Super Bowl, the Cowboys came roaring back and then somehow pulled off the best onside kick the NFL has ever seen to be able to win that game. I would have loved to see the Eagles and Cowboys both lose, but of course we can't have our cake and eat it too, right?
Of course, of course. And it was definitely trending that way where obviously the Giants lost to the Bears. What's it called? Everyone knew that you saw the Eagles losing to the Rams. It was not really a blowout, but it was a big enough point spread where you're like, they're not coming back.
And one thing before you keep going, though, and everyone keeps talking about the Rams and how good that D-line is and them getting after Dwayne Haskins whenever we play them. They had 0 sacks against Carson Wentz on Sunday. Keep going.
Exactly. Meanwhile, we had 1, 2, 8. Oh, 8. Yeah, it was 8. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought that? I mean, if you would have watched the first half of that game, you would have been like, oh yeah, Dallas is definitely getting crushed. They cannot stop a nosebleed right now. They're marching up and down the field. Atlanta is that's what I mean. And they were turning the ball over. Dallas was, and yeah. So, but I said when I was watching with my brother, I said, watch. Dallas is going to somehow turn around. They're going to come back in the second half. They're going to win the game. I just did not see it coming down to that crazy, ridiculous, spinny, topsy-turvy onside kick by Greg Zuerlein. I mean, props to him because he had to practice that millions of times because that's like 1 in like a million chance of like something that ever happening. But also, whoever the special teams coach is for Atlanta needs to be like fired immediately because you learn in Pop Warner football, when the kickoff goes, it's a free kick, as in you better get the ball or they're going to recover it, and it's their ball. So for them to just be watching it roll around like, hot potato, like, I don't know. So,
dude, you can even kick it. You can even kick it out of bounds.
Right, smack it out of bounds.
Do something.
Just don't watch it.
Right.
Just don't watch it. Like, jeez. But, I mean, hey, like you said, we can't have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah. And look, and you just reminded me, I know that we had our reaction pod, but a lot of people have been talking today. Analysts have talked about Dwayne Haskins. So, Hall, I want to kind of get your input on this. Are you ready to give up on Dwayne Haskins? Do you think this team should give up on Dwayne Haskins?
No. I mean, obviously, me, you, and Reed were like texting back and forth earlier in the chat. I treat this first 4 weeks, and I know it's like we have the Baltimore Ravens, I think, after the Browns,
yep.
And then we have,
I believe the Rams.
Who? San Francisco after that.
I believe the Rams.
The Rams, yeah. So I know we have some tough defenses. Yeah, you're right. It's the Rams. Some tough defenses coming up, and I know it's like not really technically preseason, but it's a young offense with a new coaching staff, a new offense being installed. You didn't have, obviously, we've talked about it a million times, the weird offseason, like limited training camp. So, I mean, limited weapons, and obviously now with depleted offensive line and a young offensive line. So I mean, it's a lot of things stacked against him. So I'm using these kind of 3 to 4 weeks as kind of a building up kind of preseason ramp up type of thing. Now by week, let's call it the second quarter of the season, though that 6 to 8 week season, or for a 5 to 8 week quarter, if they're still in the same kind of stagnant way, they're not really moving the ball. Dwayne is not really looking like he did in the offseason when he's in shorts, like everyone else was looking good. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have some concern. I'm not going to say pull the plug. I'd rather see him go all 16 games, barring injury or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, just and then let it ride it out and see if he can actually muster up a little bit of comeback and get this offense generated like in the second half of the season. But yeah, I would definitely by week 16 we're going to know if he's going to be the guy or not. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I think that's what Reed had alluded to earlier, where this is kind of a prove it year for Haskins with Ron Rivera, essentially. Where look, I know everyone's talked about it, but Ron is not married to Dwayne. We can be 100% honest with ourselves. And speaking of being honest with ourselves, you can look at this game and look at Dwayne Haskins thus far and say, yes, there are some obstacles in his way. There are some things that are halting his progress, but at the same time be realistic and say where he is right now is not good. And it's not because of anything else. It's because of Dwayne. I think we all need to be honest and say the kind of performance he's putting out there, the inaccuracy issues, the not being able to read, staring down wide receivers, that is an absolute issue. And look, we can blame it. We can call it a snowball's effect, whatever you want. He's got to shore up his play just like everyone else does on that team. I know, but I just don't want to get thrown on the wayside that everyone else needs to get better except for Dwayne. Dwayne did everything he could. Everyone else sucked. I just did not believe that to be the case.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. Like you said, I mean, it's 100% on Wayne, and I mean, look,
the game's not on the game's not on him. You know what I mean? Like, but
exactly, yeah, exactly. It's like all the I think JP Finley said it, and maybe he got it from someone else. He's not losing us the games because he's not turning the ball over.
Right.
By all accounts from Ron, he's making the right reads. I guess he's just rushing it and making that's causing the inaccuracies, and so he's making the right reads and then with plays given. So he's not winning us the game, or he's not losing us the game because he's not turning the ball over, but he's also not winning us the game because he's missing those wide open throws, he's missing the easy throws, and obviously we're not putting up points.
Yeah. Look, I view Dwayne Haskins like I do Big Ben. Could we evaluate Big Ben after 9 games and say that that's where he was going to be and predict where he was going to go? No, you can't. But at the same time, they are two different quarterbacks, and I think Big Ben at this time was playing slightly. He wasn't very good at all, but he was playing slightly better than what is being put onto the field. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Regardless of weapons, there is some sort of a medium, some sort of level that you have to play as a quarterback in this league. And right now we're getting subpar. We're getting below that, to be perfectly honest with you.
That was going to be my point. Whereas Ben was kind of, obviously he was backed up by that great defense and all the veterans around him, but in the run game with Jerome Bettis, but he was still at a average quarterback level's worth of play. He was hitting the easy reads and the wide open guys and making the easy throws. And he was doing it at a consistent kind of, you can see the potential and where he's going to go type of level. Whereas Dwayne right now, you see the flashes and then it's really inconsistent. And then you see the flashes and then it's really inconsistent. So you don't really have that trajectory of, oh, I can see where he can be in maybe a couple games from here. But so we can see if we can clean it up against Cleveland this week.
Yeah, look, and that's where I'm right there with Chip. I believe that Scott Turner, one of the best ways that he can get this offense rolling is more with the up-tempo, with being able to get the ball out of Dwayne Haskins' hands quickly. Just like Arizona Cardinals last year, they sped everything up to get the ball out of Kyler's hands fast because if the more time he had to think, the more issues arose. So that being said, let's make sure the ball's getting out of Dwayne's hands quicker. But at the same time, once they start running the ball, once they're consistent, when they're not down by 3 scores, they can run the ball at ease, you know? They've been put in these terrible situations, and as much as we want to club Dwayne and this offense and for how they've been playing, it's been a kind of crappy situation. And Troy Apke is one of the reasons why that's been the case. I think Troy can be good, but he's got to shore up his stuff, man. And this team, there's weaknesses, obviously, but you can't have that big a weakness in the top half of your defense, dude.
Exactly. And like I said, I think with Kendall Fuller coming back, hopefully they can kind of mix him and Landon Collins back at that safety position and rotate them and like the 2 safeties. And then, like I said, have Jimmy, Fabian, and Darby as the corners, and just have kind of Apke come in on packages, and kind of a rotation type of thing, so he can kind of make those flash plays instead of trying to be a consistent kind of. So right now, like you said on the reaction, when you're in training camp, you kind of like seeing the plays every single day. You kind of know what's coming, so you kind of break on the ball and make those kind of splash plays and make people like, oh, ooh, ooh. So I think that right now he's thinking way too hard, which is causing him not to react. So I think that he needs to just go back to kind of a rotational thing and kind of watch from the sidelines till he gets a full grasp of what's going on in the field.
Yeah, and like when you look at QBs, like I hate to make the comparison because I know he was a former Washington quarterback, but with like Kirk is more like he goes short and then goes long. He works short, then goes long. Where Dwayne is the opposite. It's almost like Dwayne like knows he has a big arm and wants to make that flashy throw. He wants to make the long throw. He doesn't want to go short, and that's where I kind of want Dwayne to flip. Let's go short to long. Let's make sure we're getting everything short, and then let's push the ball down the field. You know what I'm saying? Because right now he's missing those dink and dunk throws. He's missing those touch throws. He's missing those smart outlet, be able to help the offensive line and get those short yardage pickups that are necessary to win. Because all the other quarterbacks do it in the league. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not illegal by any stretch. I know it's cheap, but that's what the rest of the league does. Allow Antonio Gibson, allow J.D. McKissic to make plays out in space. Trust them to be able to do that for you because I'm telling you right now, based on what we've seen, I'm not sure if these wide receivers can win the one-on-one jump balls that he's been throwing them up to.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what I was gonna say. That's where getting the backs involved in the passing game more comes into play. The mismatches with the linebackers with Gibson and McKissick's speed. Obviously, Gibson and McKissic being former wide receivers, they can have those kind of shifty matchups against the safeties and linebackers, obviously. And yeah, like you said, just kind of getting those kind of quick screens and kind of those dump offs to get Dwayne a little bit of confidence, a little bit of rhythm going forward. So that way, when he does take that deep shot, when he does take that intermediate shot to Terry or whoever it is coming across the middle, Logan Thomas, it's going to be an accurate, nice planted feet ball. It's not going to be, oh, I'm feeling the rush all game. I got to get that out fast. So I mean, look, Tom Brady's been dinking and dunking his way to the past 2 Super Bowls. It can be done, people. Come on.
Right. Like, dude, a lot of the time, they wouldn't even run the ball. What was that one game? Was against Buffalo? I forget who it was. They played somebody like 5 or 6 years ago, and they literally didn't run the ball once.
Yeah,
all they did was just dink and dunk all day long. And that can be done, Dwayne. Let's worry about that. And look, I know you're going to say, look, the defense could key in on that. Those are pick sixes and everything. You guys are professionals. Find a way because the long stuff is not working right now. Yeah.
Scheme it up.
And look, everyone could talk about the second half of each game, but we both know football and we both know what defenses do in the second half when they have a lead. And that is make sure nothing is allowed deep, make sure no big plays are allowed, and allow the small stuff. And that's what the Fauch football team was doing the past 2 quarters in that game. I don't want to put
everything in front.
I don't want to put much credence in it. But that being said, the rest of the NFL was injury shocked. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's out. Saquon Barkley's out. People are left and right. So, Hall, who is somebody, some fantasy owners out there, people that don't really know what's going on, who is somebody they can go in and get off the waiver wire that's going to be able to work for them immediately?
Well, we can go down to Jacksonville with our former offensive coordinator / head coach guy, Jay Gruden. You see what he's doing with Gardner Minshew, scheming up a bunch of touchdowns and a very, very nice passing game down there. I think Gardner Minshew is second in the league with touchdowns right now, passing touchdowns. A guy that I liked and I've seen on the waiver wires in a couple leagues, most leagues, is Keelan Cole.
My man.
He had a big game last week. A big game for him, I would say, as a third receiver kind of guy. Gardner Minshew seems to like him as a target. And again, if he's on waivers, he's a nice little kind of sneaky, cheap guy.
Yeah, in our full point PPR leagues, he's had 15 points the past 2 games. So it looks like he is a consistent target for Gardner Minshew. And we know with Jay Gruden, he loves to throw the football, so that would be a good investment for you. One guy for me is Mike Davis, the running back for Carolina. He's a normal big guy there. He's going to be the number 1 back for Carolina now that Christian McCaffrey is gone. So you're going to get the immediate usage out of him. Their offense is not going to drastically change. They don't have the wide receivers to be able to keep up with an air raid kind of offense, so they're going to have to be able to still run the football. I like Mike Davis. I love your pick with Keelan Cole. It's such a good one, but I'm going to go with Dion Lewis. I know that the Giants have signed Devontae Freeman today, which, if you guys haven't already, go put a waiver in for Devontae Freeman. You can get him easily, and he's going to fit in with the Saquon Barkley role perfectly. He's going to be able to fit in and be able to get you points from day one. But another guy I like is Dion Lewis. And for PPR formats, he has continued to get targets from Daniel Jones. And I think in past situations, especially early on, he's going to be able to bring a lot of value for fantasy owners. So put it in a waiver for Dion Lewis if you're going to lose out on like Mike Davis.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a former 3-down back with the Patriots and the Titans for a little bit. So he can definitely kind of carry the load. I know they're going to try to mix in Wayne Gallman. So another kind of sneaky pickup if you want to try to grab Wayne Gallman. But I'll stick to another wide receiver who I like. And I'll stick in Carolina. I know I've seen him on a lot of waiver wires too. Robbie Anderson. I don't know why he's still on the waiver wire right now, but if you've been tracking these last 2 weeks, Teddy B loves him some Robbie Anderson. You mentioned it with him playing under Matt Rule at Temple.
Yep.
So he already knows his offense for the most part. He's a real speedy, deep threat guy. And, I mean, look, Teddy B, people like to clown on his arm, but he's been throwing it up to Robbie Anderson lately. So if you need a little wide receiver help, pick up Robbie.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I saw some guy earlier on Twitter, a scout, I'm pretty sure, and he put up a list of who he thought through the first 2 games were the best route runners in the NFL. Obviously, Terry's on there, Devontae. Robbie Anderson was on there. And we've talked to like everyone, the consensus with Robbie Anderson is he's strictly a deep threat. It looks like his route running has progressed, and he looks really, really good. I love that pick. Another guy that I think that you guys can target and is actually going to get you some PPR value is Darrell Henderson, the running back from the Rams. Cam Akers, a guy who I have on my roster, exited the game after 3 plays with ribs. He's day-to-day. And then Mac Brown has a broken pinky, if I'm not mistaken. So he's kind of iffy as well. Darrell Henderson really had an uptick in carries after Akers went out. So Darrell Henderson, if you're missing out on the other guys, you know with LA and Sean McVay, you want one of those running backs. Darrell Henderson's another plug for you to be able to get some value.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great little sneaky guy to pick up. I had a wide receiver off the top of my head I was just thinking of. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. Oh, there it is. A.J. Brown being down in Tennessee. Tannehill's been putting up some pretty good numbers. It seems that he has a real good command of this offense under Arthur Smith, who looks like he's on his way to being a head coach real soon in this league.
Yep.
He really has that Tannehill on that offense down in Tennessee looking very, very good. My little sneaky pickup, I'll stick to wide receivers because I love my wide receivers. Adam Humphries, another slot guy that seems to be getting a lot of targets with A.J. Brown being out. His target uptick is going up, and I think he got in the end zone last week, or maybe it was week 1, but I know Tannehill loves a little dump offs and little option routes, so look to be picking up Adam Humphries as well.
Yeah, and another guy that you guys can go pick off waivers. It went under the wayside, you could say. But Mohamed Sanu going with San Francisco, and playing with them. They're injury riddled, obviously, and he's going to be able to get the ball. He reunites with Kyle Shanahan after their days in Atlanta. I think that would be a phenomenal pickup for you as well. And then Jerick McKinnon, if he hasn't already been selected. And then look, Jordan Reed. We talked about it last week. Yeah. He was a good pickup in case George Kittle was gone because he was gonna, and he did well. I'd love to see Jordan Reed do well.
2 touchdowns. Yeah, man. And my last one, I just remember who it was off the top of my head. Going back to last night, you mentioned him earlier. Our guy, we wanted him in the draft, really to go opposite with Terry. Brian Edwards, he's getting in more and more. I know it's only 2 weeks in, but his targets have gone up from last week to this week, involved in that offense. So look for him to get a lot more targets going forward. It seems that Derek Carr's starting to get a little confidence under him too.
And you know who I actually liked after watching that Sunday Night Football game with the Patriots and Seattle, which was a phenomenal game. Those offenses went back and forth. Yeah, is Bird, the wide receiver for New England? Cam Newton really clicks with him. He almost reminds me of that kind of like Steve Smith connection, where it's just that soft catching. I just love this kid Bird. I feel like he could be a kind of a sleeper for some people. They need wide receiver help.
One of the few draft picks that the Patriots had this past draft, and Bill Belichick spent it. I think it was a 5th round pick out of Arizona. Sorry, Bird. So that's definitely a nice little pickup. It seems that like you said, Cam's kind of getting a little rapport with him, and he's a real small, kind of speedy type of guy. So he could definitely get those downfield touchdowns with Cam's like a huge cannon arm.
Yeah, and look, they don't have that many wide receivers. And look, I understand they're run heavy and everything, but all of the passes, a lot of the passes have been going towards Bird. And if you go look up Bird on ESPN, his like description is not much at all. It just says that he's like the top target for Cam, and that's it. It doesn't say anything else because nobody's starting him. I think that's somebody you guys could really go key in on, and he could benefit your team really well. All right, everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Now I was gonna say there is one more running back. I just thought of another running back because Thursday Night Football is coming up in 2 days. Myles Gaskins.
Yeah.
I think he's a rookie. I think he has his rookie year out of Washington. He's definitely kind of taken over that backfield over Matt Breida and Frank Gore. He's definitely good in the passing game. That's a guy I watched in college a couple games, well, multiple games.
Yep.
And I really like him. So if he's definitely on the waivers in a lot of leagues, then look for him to get a lot of upticks in passing. If you have PPR, he's definitely a good running back to swipe off the waivers.
Absolutely. And look, if you don't follow me on Twitter, I said it 6 days ago. I timestamped it and everything. I said you fantasy owners can start Leonard Fournette this week, and that was last week, and I was proven correct with 27 points. He's already on my roster, but he's somebody who, if he hasn't been picked up already, you should go target and play. It looks like he's about to overtake Ronald Jones for that number one job because he is performing well with Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, he had the breakout kind of game-sealing, long touchdown.
47-yard touchdown,
yeah. Yeah, 47-yard, almost 50-yard touchdown running against the Panthers. So he's definitely looking at mid-season Leonard Fournette form right now, only in week 2.
Yep. Everyone was questioning me. Wow, you need to start Leonard Fournette? Yeah, dude, I'm telling you. Dude, Carolina's that bad. That defense is just that terrible.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
they're starting like 4 or 5 rookies on that defense right now. So they're
right.
going through it.
Oh, they're absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Anything else you want to get into before we head out of here?
I just want to say that, Taylor, I don't know if you're going to see this or not, but you got so damn lucky that I decided to take out Ryan Tannehill at 12:58 because of some weird feeling I had in my gut that that Kirk Cousins was going to have a great game against Indianapolis, and he had the complete opposite of a great game. He, in fact, had a horrible game and got me negative points. Meanwhile, Tannehill got me like 35, and I lost by like 33. So, good night, folks.
Dude, look, I was out here and said to start Leonard Fournette, and I had the ability to be able to start him. And we recorded Drunkies, and it was like literally like 12:40, and I was heading to the store to buy dog food, and I was like, you know what? Cam Akers didn't do well last week. I feel like he could get a lot of the nod today. I can't mortgage this gamble. I feel like I'm wrong about this. Look what happens. Cam Akers puts up 1.9, and Leonard Fournette ends up putting up 27 points for it. So, look, just go with your gut, people. You know, that's the best thing I can tell. I know the hardest decisions are the ones that reap the most benefits. It sucks. Yeah. But I was able to escape with a W, a 0.7 win. Wow.
Yeah, man.
I got lucky.
And then, even with the huge game of Darren Waller had last night, which, again, I had Emmanuel Sanders thinking he'll be the number one target for Drew Brees. I'll keep it close. Thanks for the 1 point or 2 points that you got me, Emmanuel Sanders, last night. You have gone to my bench and you are not returning ever again.
Yeah, Traquan Smith looked like Michael Thomas 2.0. He looked phenomenal yesterday. He was just left and right catching the football, running through tackles. He looked really, really good.
That's another little kind of fancy sleeper. He's a lot of waiver wires too.
Yep.
So go pick Traquan Smith up.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in. A lot of thanks to Chip Brierre, the host of the Washington Football Team podcast, The Beat. We appreciate you for taking your time out and coming on, Chip. You gave us a lot of insight. And we'll be back on Thursday with a full preview of this Sunday's game against the Cleveland Browns. I think Washington can win this game. I really do.
So do I. And you'll get my prediction this upcoming Thursday.
Absolutely. And Mike Reed, he had a family emergency. I hope everything is good with him. You know, he's in and out of the hospital. We love you, Reed. I hope everything is all right. We'll see you guys on Thursday with a full preview of the Washington Football Team versus the Cleveland Browns, baby. All right, everybody. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify, Google Pods, everywhere. YouTube. Go like and subscribe us, please. We really appreciate it, everybody. All right, we'll see you on Thursday. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
Washington football. Woo!